$65 billion. It's a number so absurd that the human brain struggles to even visualize it. If you spent $1 every single second, it would take you over 2,000 years to spend $65 billion. But this isn't just a story about a mountain of cash. It's a story about trust, carefully built, expertly exploited, and turned into the deadliest weapon of all. In the center of this massive financial crater stands one man, a grandfatherly figure, a philanthropist, and the former chairman of the NASDAQ. Bernie Madoff was the personification of stability. He was the face of Wall Street that everyone wanted to be associated with. But Bernie was a man of two faces. One was the pillar of society, while the other was the architect of the largest, most cold-blooded fraud in human history. But how did the world's most trusted man become its most dangerous predator? And how did he, for over 40 years, manage to keep the world's biggest banks and government regulators from ever looking behind the curtain? Now we pull back the curtain and gonna see how it worked, who enabled it, and how it survived for 40 years. Most people think a con artist looks like a desperate hustler, someone selling dreams on a street corner. But the truly dangerous ones are already inside the house. Bernie Madoff didn't just play the game, he built the arena. In the 1960s, he wasn't a criminal, he was a visionary. He started his firm, Bernard L. Madoff Investment Securities, with a few $1,000s earned as a lifeguard and by installing sprinklers. He was a pioneer in electronic trading, helping to lay the digital foundations of what would become the NASDAQ. This gave him the ultimate shield, unassailable legitimacy. Between the 1960s and 2008, Madoff operated a legitimate brokerage business on the 18th and 19th floors of the Lipstick Building in Manhattan. Hundreds of honest traders worked there, unaware that just one floor below, a parasite was devouring the world's wealth. This is the halo effect in action. Because he was a legend who helped build the stock market, nobody bothered to check if he was actually participating in it. He was the fox who didn't just guard the henhouse. He was the one who designed the security system for it. Madoff understood something fundamental about human psychology. We are hardwired to respect authority. When the former chairman of the NASDAQ tells you he has a strategy, you don't ask for receipts. You ask for a seat at the table. He spent decades cultivating this persona, sitting on regulatory boards and advising the very people meant to police him. He wasn't hiding from the light. He was standing directly in the center of it, using the brilliance of his reputation to blind everyone to the darkness beneath his feet. But a visionary name only gets you so far. To steal billions, you need a psychological hook. Bernie's weapon of choice was exclusivity. He didn't beg for your money. He acted like he didn't need it. He focused on affinity fraud, infiltrating high-end country clubs in Palm Beach and elite Jewish charitable circles. He created a velvet rope strategy where you had to be invited to invest with him. If someone asked how to get in, the answer was usually a whispered, "I'm not sure Bernie is taking new clients." This triggered a primal fear of missing out. People practically begged him to take their life savings. It was social proof on a global scale. If the smartest people you knew, your rabbi and your favorite Hollywood stars were all with Bernie, why wouldn't you be? You didn't just trust Bernie, you trusted the collective intelligence of the elite. But in the world of Madoff, that collective intelligence was actually just a shared, comfortable blindness. He exploited the inner circle mentality. By targeting charities and pension funds, he wasn't just taking money. He was taking the future of organizations dedicated to the public good. He was a predator who understood that if you betray one person, you're a thief. But if you betray a community, you're an institution. This psychological wall was so strong that even when people noticed red flags, they dismissed them. They didn't want to believe that the man they had invited to their weddings and charity galas was systematically stripping them of everything they owned. The engine of this lie was a strategy he called split-strike conversion. It sounded like financial alchemy, a complex system of buying blue-chip stocks and hedging them with options to guarantee a steady 10 to 12% return every year, regardless of the market. On paper, it was a work of art. While the S&P 500 was crashing or soaring, Madoff's returns were a smooth, beautiful upward line. It was the holy grail of investing, certainty in an uncertain world. But the reality was a ghost machine. Reports now confirm that for decades, Madoff wasn't buying a single share of stock. The billions coming in from new investors were simply being used to pay profits to the old ones. The real magic happened on the 17th floor, a place that was effectively a factory for fiction. While the floors above were high-tech and modern, the 17th floor was a time capsule from the 1970s. It was filled with outdated IBM servers and old dot matrix printers. The staff here weren't financial geniuses. They were often people with no formal training, hired for their absolute loyalty to Bernie. Their entire existence was dedicated to the paper. They spent decades manually typing up thousands of fake trade confirmations and account statements. They would wait for the market to close, look at historical prices, and then backdate trades to make it look like Bernie had perfectly timed the market. Millions of pages of documents were generated to support a reality that didn't exist. It was a manual production of a digital fantasy, and it functioned right under the noses of the world's most sophisticated regulators. Yet, even with a factory of lies, how did the government miss it? The failure of the SEC is one of the most shocking chapters of the $65 billion lie. For nearly a decade, a math whiz named Harry Markopolos tried to scream the truth from the rooftops. Within 5 minutes of looking at Madoff's numbers, Markopolos realized they were a physical impossibility. He submitted detailed reports titled "The World's Largest Hedge Fund is a Fraud," showing that there weren't even enough option contracts in existence to support Madoff's claimed trades. But the SEC was starstruck. They saw Madoff as a legend and Markopolos as a crazy person with a calculator. The regulators were so intimidated by Bernie's reputation as an insider that they never performed the most basic check, calling the clearinghouses to verify if the trades were actually happening. Madoff later admitted in his sworn testimony that if the SEC had just done their job, they would have caught him in minutes. This is the dark side of institutional trust. The system is designed to catch the small-time crook, but it is often powerless against the man who writes the rules. Markopolos wasn't just fighting Madoff, he was fighting the collective ego of the financial establishment. They couldn't admit they had been fooled, so they chose to stay blind. It was a 9-year period of systemic negligence that allowed the fraud to grow from a few billion to the final, catastrophic total of $65 billion. The end began with the 2008 global financial meltdown. A Ponzi scheme is like a shark. It has to keep moving and eating to survive. But as the markets crashed, the new blood dried up, and everyone wanted their cash at the same time. Suddenly, Madoff was hit with $7 billion in redemption requests. The bank account was empty. He tried desperately to lure in new investors, even approaching old friends for one last investment, but the world was out of liquidity. On December 10, 2008, the most trusted thief finally hit the wall. In his luxury penthouse, he confessed to his sons, Mark and Andrew, that the entire business was one big lie and a giant Ponzi scheme. His sons, realizing the magnitude of the crime, went straight to their lawyers. By the next morning, the FBI was at Bernie's door. On December 11, 2008, the mask that had fooled the world for 40 years was finally ripped off. The arrest sent shockwaves through the global economy. It wasn't just a business failure, it was a moral collapse. People who thought they were millionaires woke up to find they were broke. The realization was slow and agonizing. Thousands of victims across the globe, from Florida retirees to European royalty, watched as their bank balances literally evaporated overnight. The money hadn't been lost in the market, it had never existed in the first place. The aftermath was a scene of total human wreckage. It wasn't just the wealthy who lost everything. It was the retirees who saw their pensions vanish and charities that had to close their doors overnight. Bernie Madoff pleaded guilty to 11 felony counts, admitting to the misappropriation of billions. In 2009, he was sentenced to 150 years in prison, a symbolic gesture for a man whose crimes were called extraordinarily evil. The court also ordered a staggering forfeiture of $170 billion in assets. But the tragedy didn't stop at the prison gates. The Madoff curse claimed his own family. His son Mark, hounded by the media and unable to escape the shadow of his father's sins and the endless accusations, offed himself on the second anniversary of Bernie's arrest. His other son, Andrew, died of cancer a few years later, claiming the stress of the scandal had destroyed his health. Bernie's brother, Peter, was sentenced to 10 years for his role in the falsified records. The family legacy was nothing but ash. The victims' stories are a mosaic of despair. Some lost their homes, others lost their sanity. There are stories of elderly couples who had to go back to work at 80 years old because their safe investment with Bernie was gone. The betrayal was so deep because it was intimate. This wasn't a bank error. It was a friend, a mentor, and a leader who had systematically liquidated their lives for his own comfort. However, in the wreckage, there was one unexpected hero. Irving Picard was appointed as the trustee to recover what he could for the victims. It seemed like a fool's errand. The money was spent, hidden, or lost. But Picard became a financial bloodhound. He sued the massive banks like JP Morgan Chase and HSBC, accusing them of ignoring the fraud to keep Madoff's business. He also launched clawback suits against investors who had unknowingly withdrawn more than they had put in, the winners of the Ponzi scheme. Against all odds, Picard has managed to recover over $14 billion, more than 70% of the actual lost principal. It is an achievement unparalleled in financial history. While it can't bring back the years of stress or the lives lost to the tragedy, it stands as a testament to the fact that even the most complex lies eventually leave a trail. Picard's work continues today, a decade and a half later, proving that the fallout of a $65 billion lie never truly ends. Today, the names have changed, but the patterns remain. Bernie Madoff died in a prison hospital in 2021, but his $65 billion lie continues to echo through every corner of the financial world. His story is the ultimate proof that the person you trust most is the only person who can truly ruin you. He didn't just steal money. He hacked the human brain, exploiting our desire for certainty and our fear of being left out. As we look at the new financial gurus on social media and the latest can't-miss opportunities in crypto and fintech, we must remember the 17th floor. We must remember that in the world of wealth and behavior, the most expensive thing you can ever own is a secret that you're too afraid to question. The next Madoff isn't going to look like a criminal. He's going to look exactly like someone you trust. He will have the right suit, the right friends, and the right exclusivity. And the question isn't if he's out there, it's if you're already standing in his vault, waiting for the lights to go out.